Hello, welcome to another month with the Global Stampin Video Hop. My name is Linda Dolke and I'm a demonstrator with Stampin Up in Australia. Each month we go live with a group of videos to show you wonderful things based on a different theme each time. So this month our theme is seasons, and it made a lot of sense to me to pull out this stamp set, the Season of Chic, because I have to be honest and tell you I have not used this one nearly as much as I should have. It's a beautiful set. I have just learned that it's going to be retiring at the end of this annual catalogue, which is about to happen. So that's next month. The end of next month is the retirement date, unless it sells out first, of course. But this is a beautiful set and I want to use it before it goes. So this is what I'm working with today. Now let me show you my card. I've made this card based on the different seasons that we have, and you can see they're all represented. We have winter, we have autumn or fall, depending on where you live. We have summer and we have spring. So these are my seasons, and I'm going to show you how I made this card. It's actually a very simple card, but the embossing of the different images makes it a little bit special. All right, so I'm starting out with a basic white card base. This is basic white thick, which is my favorite base to use for cards. You can use any color you like, but I do prefer it to be a sturdier cardstock, so it's not too flimsy, and this basic white thick is great for that. So it's a really good choice. Let's set that one aside. And then I have a piece of grey granite. This grey granite cardstock is measured to be 9 centimeters by 9 centimeters, or if you're in the US, 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Okay, so metric is 9 by 9 and the imperial is 3.5 by 3.5. Okay, I'll set that aside as well. Then I have my 4 squares for my 4 seasons. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be inking up these little, making an image on each one, but I'm going to do it in Versamark. And before I start, I am actually going to use my embossing buddy. Now I'm very bad at remembering to use my embossing buddy, but I'm just going to put my fingernail very on the very edge there, and I'm going to wipe this over the whole piece. And I'm going to do this with all 4 pieces. And if you're wondering why I do this, nothing seems to be happening, but what is happening, it actually makes a better surface for stamping on, because if we don't do this, it's possible that a bit of static electricity that's on the surface of the paper can cause the powder, when we apply the powder later, the powder to stick in places we don't want it to. So this is to stop that from happening, all right? So I'm trying not to handle it too much now, because the oils from my fingers can also create somewhere for that powder to stick, and we don't want to do that either. So I'm going to start with the seasons in order. I've got my little snowflake stamp here from the Season of Chic set, and I'm going to ink up my stamp with my Versamark ink. Versamark is a clear sticky ink. Okay, you won't see very much happening, but there is a bit of a pink tinge to my Versamark, so you will be able to see a little bit of this, so it will show a little bit on the paper. Now you might notice when I do this, I am not stamping in the center, I'm stamping a little bit off to one side, and that's part of the look that I'm creating today. Is if you look at my card, you'll see that none of them are actually completely in the middle, and that is by design. I wanted to make it a little bit offset because I think it makes it a little bit more interesting. Okay, so that's the first one. Then I have my leaf, and I'm going to bring that in, and I'm going to pop that in the Versamark, make sure it gets well and truly coated, and we're going to have that going from the corner, so covering part of the block. There we go. Then the next one I have is the shell, and this one I'm using to represent summer. And once again, going a little bit off center. And the last one I have is this little flower that's like to represent spring. So let's pop that to one side. And there we go. All right, all 4 are done. Get the lid back on my Versamark. Now I'm actually going to be embossing all of them. I'll show you how I do the first one, and then I'll do them all, but with the magic of television, we'll suddenly have them all done. But I'm going to show you how I do it, and they're all going to be done in the same way. So I'm going to pop this in here, I'm going to pile some white embossing powder on top. You could also use clear. Because we're using white paper, clear would also work for this. So just popping my fingernail on the corner there, I'm going to dump this over the top. And pick it up at the corners, or you can use tweezers to pick it up if you have any. And I'm just going to tap off any excess. That looks great. Okay, can you see where I held it with my finger is a little bit of powder has stuck there, but I can get rid of that. That's pretty easy. All right, that looks great. All right, so let me do this one first. I'm just going to get rid of this powder. What's great about this editions kit, the embossing editions kit, is that it comes with that little embossing buddy, but also it has this little lid on the little cap on the plug, and so you can easily get your powder straight back into the tub when you're done with it. So let's take the lid off, and I'm just going to tap that back in. You could use a brush as well. All right. All right. So now I'm going to pop that in there. Now I don't want it to blow away when I use my my heat gun. So you might want to hold it down. You can hold it down with a pair of tweezers, the point of your scissors, you take your pick tool, or anything you happen to find. And I'm just going to hold it there so it doesn't blow away on me when I bring my heat tool in. So I'm going to start up my heat tool, and you will hear it making a bit of noise. And we're going to cook this powder so it goes hard and shiny. It doesn't take very long either. And you can see it when the powder is shiny. It is now hard. In fact, you can touch it pretty much straight away. If you haven't cooked it enough, then the powder would wipe away at that point. But as you can see, mine is definitely cooked. So let's move that out of the way. All right, so that's ready to go. I'm going to do the same thing with these other ones. Okay, so I'm going to pop them all in here. I'm going to do them all together, and we're going to pop the powder over the top. Okay, so here we go. We have winter, we have fall or autumn, we have summer, and we have spring. Okay, there are 4 seasons right there. Now we need to add some color to them. And when I was adding the color, I don't know if you can see on here, I decided to use the stamp that is part of this set. It's this one right here. You can see I've still got some ink on it from before. But I've used the same stamp, and I've just added some different colors over the top to create a different feel for each season. So let me do this again. So the first one I decided to do was winter. So I'm going to move that out of the way. And I decided to go in with balmy blue, so to create like a frosty kind of a look. So I'm using the swirly part, which is like the swishy part down here. And this actually has been recently re-inked, and it's probably a little darker than I would normally want it, but I actually didn't mind it in this case. So I'm going to pop that over the top, and that's how that looks. Okay, now something that happens when you put your ink over the top of embossing, some of the ink stays on top, and I don't know if you can see, some of the blue ink has stayed on that white piece. And what you want to do is you want to bring in a bit of paper towel or a tissue and just give it a rub. Okay, and that's going to rub that off the surface, and then your white embossing underneath will show through a little better. Okay, so you could decide to leave it like that, or you might decide to add more color. I did actually add a little bit more color, but I came back and did that at the end. So we'll come back to that and decide whether we want to add more color. The second one was the leaf. Okay, and for the leaf I decided to add a couple of colors because, you know, autumn, I decided to add yellow and orange to have my autumny colors. And then I also added a little bit of green. Now I didn't want to add a lot of green, so I actually used my my old olive marker for that bit. So there's my old olive marker. All right, so I started with the lightest color, and I added it to this swishy swirly part down here, and I just colored it. So now I have yellow, And then I kind of used the old rock and roll technique. So I used some pumpkin pie, but I kind of turned my ink and just added a little bit here and there. So I wanted to add a little bit of orange, but I still wanted the yellow to show through. So that's working. That's good. And then I use my old olive marker to add a bit more color. All right, a little bit more green. And this is thumping. This technique is, goodness me, old as the hills, where you actually sort of tap over your stamp with the color that you want to add. And then I'm going to have that so it's coming in at the same angle as that first stamp on the first block. And we're just going to put that down over the top of our leaf, and that's what it looks like. Once again, I'm bringing in that bit of tissue that I had a moment ago, and I'm just going to rub over the top to make my leaf stand out a little bit more. All right, so we have you can see the green and the orange and the yellow all kind of mixed in here together. All right, then we have our shell. Now for this one, I wasn't sure with summer, I wasn't sure quite what to do, but I decided to go with grey granite because not only is it going to look really nice with the card, but I thought that's actually going to work. I think that will lend itself to a summery look. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. Now if the grey granite is too dark for you, you could stamp it off. Okay, that would look fine. And then I came in at a similar angle to before, and I pop that right there like that. Okay, you'll notice there's a bit of blue in this one. I'm going to come back to that later. I did add some blue because I thought that would tie in the colors really nicely, and also it helps to fill out the shape of the shell, but I'm leaving it like this for now. All right, that's cleaned and ready to go. The last one I used for the flower, I decided to go with a little bit of petal pink and a little bit of Calypso Coral. Goodness me, I said the name of a very old color then. Goodness, I've been doing this too long. That's the problem. All right, so I'm going in with the petal pink. Now petal pink is not a pink. It's kind of like a salmony pink. So it goes really well with Calypso Coral, actually. All right, so I'm going to do like I did with this one, and I'm going to kind of rock and roll it around a little bit. I'm going to not ink up the whole thing, but I'm going to kind of have that going over this one side. Actually, let's see how that looks. Move that out of the way. All right, so you can see there's some petal pink in here, but there's also some Calypso Coral. All right. Right, now you could leave them like that. I'm just going to use my tissue again and quickly run it over these guys to make the shell stand out a little bit more. See how the bit comes off, and then also this one to run over my flower. Now you could leave them like this, but when I did it, I was a little bit disappointed that the shell didn't look like a shell as much as I wanted it to. The snowflake is good, okay? It works really well. You could just leave it like that, although I decided to add a little bit of extra color there as well. I brought in my aqua painter or water painter, and I decided to add a little bit more color. Now this is balmy blue. And so what I did was I popped a block into the balmy blue ink. I used my water painter and I added a bit of water to water it down a little bit so that the color would be lighter. And then I added a little bit more color here, because having that little bit of color, and I went a little bit up the top here, but this is actually going to make your snowflake stand out a little bit more against that embossing, and also make it look a little bit more filled out. So you can do as much or as little as you like, but I kind of liked how that looked. Okay, then I'm going to get rid of that blue on my aqua painter, and I'm going to come in with my next color. For this one, I decided to add some green. So once again, you're going to add a little bit of old olive to your block. Going to come in with your water painter, tiny bit of water, and we're going to fill in the rest of the leaf, the bits that didn't fill in before. And it's just going to make it stand out a little bit more against that background. Okay, that's probably enough. You don't need very much for this one. I think it's pretty good actually, but that looks good. Now the shell and the flower were the two that I thought needed the most filling out. So I'm just going to bring my block in again. Now this time I decided to add a bit of the Balmy Blue again, but I didn't want it to be terribly dark, so I made sure I watered it down quite a bit, and I added this over the edges of my shell so that the shape of the shell kind of stands out. All right, so that looks better. Just adds a bit more of the shell shape over the top of that grey granite. Looks good, like it. And then the last one is the flower. So the flower is actually, we're going to add some petal pink ink to that. So once, oh, this is the coral. When you get the petal pink, we don't want it to be too corally, or I wanted it to be lighter than the rest of this color. And let me make sure I get all my blue out of my brush. And I'm going to color bits of that flower. And there we go. Now it looks a little bit more like a filled out flower. Okay, I'm liking it. It's good. It's kind of turning out like the first one, which is great. All right, so happy with these. They're ready to go. I'm going to bring in my grey granite piece. This is the 9 centimeter by 9 centimeter piece. Here it is. And what we want to do is we want to line these up on here so that they're equally distant from each other. So I want to pop them where I would like them to be. And so I'm just making sure that there's about the same amount of distance between them as there is on the edges. And that way they're going to, and I'm going to put, you could just put them flat. I actually chose to put mine on dimensionals. So I'm going to do that again because I think it looks really good. Oh, and the other thing to do to finish this off and make it look really good is to edge these pieces. So I edged them in the grey granite because I thought that that was a really good look given that they're going on to the grey granite paper. So all I do, you can use you can use daubers if you want to, but I actually just like sometimes to drag the edge into the ink pad. And that's very often all you need to do just to create a little edge that is going to make it pop. Okay, it just makes that edge look finished. And we want that. We want it to look like we care. And this little guy here. Like that. Okay, so now we're ready to go. One. Whoop. Now, when it comes to the dimensionals, what I suggest you do is when you position this where you want it, do not push it down very hard. Just sort of let it sit there without pushing it down, because that way, if we want to move it later, it's not going to be too hard to do that. All right, so I'll put a couple more of these on. 2's probably enough to hold it, or you could go 3 or even 4 if you really love your dimensionals and want to make every corner stick down, but I'm actually not worried about it. I'm just going to have it. So once again, I'm not going to push it down hard. I'm just going to, because I want to make sure that it's going to sit straight. Looking good. And then Summer. Now, as for what bling or other bits and pieces to add, you could really go crazy here. You could use twine. You could have a bit of linen thread would look fantastic, and I do have a little bit, so I might add that. And you could add any kind of bling you like, so you could go crazy. You could go with gold, you could go with silver, because that would also work. Either would work. Or you could use any of our like rustic metallic dots or something like that. Okay, pretty happy with that, so I'm actually going to push this down. And then I have myself my basic cardstock here, and I'm going to make sure that this is going to end up so it's the same distance at the sides, the top, and the other side. So you can use dimensionals, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just use Tombow. Make sure I put it on the right way. Yep, there we go. And then I'm going to have it so it's the right distance from one side to the other. That looks really good. Push it down. Now we need a greeting, and the greeting I want to have on here is going to be this one that says, "You make each season of life even more beautiful," because I think that's perfect for this particular card. And I'm going to pop it right here and grab myself a block. All right, and now we could use, for this one I used Misty Moonlight, and that looks really nice. I think it works in really, really well. Or you could go with the grey granite. Maybe we'll go with the grey granite just for a difference, and then you can decide which one you like the best. But I think they're both good. So let's do that. Whoops, we're on the right way. And I'm just going to have it so it's immediately underneath. And if you want to get it straight, the easiest way to get it straight is to stand up. And we're lining up because it's not completely straight. See, it's straight here and then it's scrolly here. So line up the straight part of the greeting to get it straight. There we go. So what do you think? Do we like... Oh, no, I've got a mark. That's okay. Easy fixed. I'll probably just cut straight across there to get rid of that. That'll probably be good. And like I said, we can add a bit of linen twine, linen thread, because linen thread goes with pretty much everything. And I do like that. Let's add that to a glue dot. And I'm going to add that, oh, this one here, the one I just did. I'm going to have that at the bottom of my shell. I think it would be nice. I'm going to just make it a little bit smaller. It's a little bit, the bow is a bit too large. And I'll get my ribbon scissors and we will cut that off. Like so. Now, what bling will we have? That is a big question, big choice. So many options. I'm thinking maybe, we have got these guys, but you could colour these white or vanilla ones in any colour you like, and that's always a good choice. So that's a possibility. But I'm thinking of these, actually. These are the rustic metallic adhesive back dots. Love them. These are just such a nice. So where shall I put my, I'll have one. Maybe I'll have one here. And we might have a couple of little ones. We'll have one up here on the corner of the snowflake maybe. And maybe one up on the corner of the leaf. There we go. Move that ever so slightly. Whoop, doesn't want to stay. Because my finger's sticky, that's why. I should be using my take your pick tool or even the point of my scissors to make these stick. Look, it's stuck to my finger. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my scissors, do it the right way. Take one off the back of the paper and position it. How much easier is that? There we go. And because I've got this mark here, I'm thinking the easy way to fix a mark right near the edge is to take that tiny little bit of edge off. There we go. So it's a little shorter than I would have had it otherwise, but got rid of the mark, right? And there we go. We have beautiful cards. What do you think? Do we like them? I hope you've enjoyed watching me do those today and maybe even learn something about, you know, adding some extra dimensional when you're embossing and using color together with it as a resist technique. I love this technique. Emboss resist is one of my absolute favorites. I hope that you enjoy not only this video but all the others in the hop we have for you this month. I would love it if you would go down to the description below this video and you'll see all the other hoppers there, and you'll be able to click on those videos and see what they have to give you, because we have some super talented people in this group that will show you things that will just blow your minds. I hope you have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I will see you again next month. Bye-bye.